So the significance of this report is it represents the current state of all of our understanding of the science of climate change, distilled into a few short chapters for world leaders to digest. So this is communicating directly to governments. And what it does is urges them to act far faster and far more ambitiously than we've ever done before. Now, these reports come and go every 6 or 7 years. I've been covering them for about 20 years, and they always say pretty much the same thing. We need to act. The issue is urgent. We have little time to act. But what's fundamentally significant about this one is that this is possibly the last time the world's scientists will warn us how and how urgently we have to avoid that crucial 1.5 degrees of warming. And that's because the report finds that by the 2030s, we will most likely have reached that target when the scientists are due to report to us again. And conveying that sense of urgency was UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres when he presented the report to the world earlier.
Humanity is on thin ice, and that ice is melting fast. I have proposed to the G20 a climate solidarity pact in which all big emitters make extra efforts to cut emissions and wealthier countries mobilize financial and technical resources to support emerging economies in a common effort to keep 1.5 degrees alive. And this is the moment for all G20 members to come together in a joint effort, pooling their resources and scientific capacities, as well as their proven and affordable technologies through the public and private sectors to make carbon neutrality a reality by 2050.
The focus there on the G20 nations, on rich nations to do more, and there's of course a reason for that, is that it's the rich nations that put most of the emissions into the atmosphere, but more significantly, those that are going to suffer most from the impacts of climate change, and the report today identifies about 3.5 billion people will be at risk over coming decades from climate extremes. They're the ones who are going to suffer the most, yet did the least to contribute to the problem. And because a lot of this global warming, even if we do everything we possibly can now and avoid 1.5 degrees of warming, we're already going to see climate extremes. We're already going to see glaciers melt and some of the worst severe impacts of climate change anyway. So there is also a call to adapt. And earlier we spoke to Dr. Frederica Otto, who's one of the lead authors of today's report, about the urgency of the adaptation problem.
No matter how successful we are on mitigation, we still need to adapt because we are already seeing a huge amount of losses and damages from human-induced climate change. Lives are being lost, livelihoods and ecosystems. And we do know how to do what the report calls transformative adaptation. And that is really reducing the vulnerability of our societies and ecosystems by investing in social security systems, investing in healthcare systems, redesigning our cities.
So an urgent call for more money to do adaptation. That funding has to be mobilised, but also that call from Antonio Guterres for rich countries to massively accelerate their efforts to reduce emissions to the atmosphere as well. Because as things currently stand, even with the commitments made at the Glasgow Climate Summit recently, which will go a little bit further than the science considered in this report, we are so very far from reducing emissions to the degree that we need to in order to prevent 1.5 degrees of warming by the 2030s.